Unfurling, the knight develops a piece and prepares for central pawn advances or further flanking action. Mirroring white's knight development maintains symmetry and keeps options open for pawn structure. Challenging black's central grip, c4 probes for queenside influence and potentially opens the d4 square for a strong pawn advance. Embracing a fianchetto, black signals readiness for a solid, potentially pawn-storming defense, while keeping central pawn structure flexible for later development. Developing this knight prepares to contest central squares and allows for rapid pawn advances on the queenside. The bishop, now openly challenging the center, prepares to support queenside expansion and adds pressure along the long diagonal. Asserting central control, white boldly stakes a claim in the heart of the board. Solidifying the center, d6 creates a robust pawn chain and prepares for potential kingside pawn pushes, enhancing black's defensive structure. Consolidating the center with this pawn push aims to dominate space and prepare for kingside development, though it opens diagonal lines for black's pieces. Securing the king provides a vital safe haven, allowing for future strategic maneuvering and piece development without immediate threats. Developing the bishop prepares to castle and reinforces the center, a sensible step in this Kings-Indian setup. Black immediately contests the center, injecting immediate tension and forcing white to decide on their pawn structure. Establishing robust kingside defense unlocks central pawn thrusts later. Fortifying the central pawn chain and developing a new attacking piece, this knight now eyes the d4 outpost. Pushing the pawn creates immediate space, a positional squeeze that black must address by finding counterplay or risking being suffocated. Strategically repositioning the knight to avoid the central pawn push, this knight now prepares to support a queenside expansion or reinforce the king's defense. Positioning the knight here aims to support a queenside pawn storm while reinforcing the center. Expanding on the queenside creates dynamic counterplay, challenging white's central grip. Asserting control over the b-file secures a vital pathway for future operations and potentially traps black's queenside. Reorganizing the knight to the queenside aims to challenge white's growing space and prepare for potential pawn breaks. Securing the queenside pawn structure establishes a stable foundation for white's pieces. Black bravely injects dynamism into the center, seeking counterplay against white's kingside buildup. Opening the queenside flank aggressively, white aims to disrupt black's pawn structure and seize initiative. Challenging white's queenside initiative, this exchange aims to disrupt pawn structure and potentially open lines for counterplay. Opening the file now presents a strategic duel for its control, potentially disrupting black's queenside structure. Initiating a central pawn thrust now appears premature given the knight's retreat, potentially allowing white to solidify their space. Unlocking the queenside with this pawn thrust creates immediate dynamic imbalances. Activating the bishop to the open diagonal offers an immediate attack on white's kingside pawn structure. Solidifying the kingside pawn structure, this move prepares for a potential kingside attack while reinforcing the e4 pawn's defense. This knight's leap initiates an aggressive wing assault, probing white's kingside defenses by offering a bishop trade and disrupting pawn structure. A subtle repositioning, eyeing the weak squares and preparing to contest the center's dynamism. Exchanging the active bishop eliminates a key attacker, but opens the c-file for white's rooks and creates potential weaknesses on black's queenside. Reclaiming the open file with the rook ignites a fight for central control and potential pawn breaks, opening lines for future attacks. Poking the knight into the center creates immediate tension and demands a response, potentially opening lines for attack. Unlocking the king's side for piece activity is the idea, but it weakens the light squares considerably. Unbalancing the structure, this pawn advance sacrifices material for active piece play and opens crucial lines toward the king. Recapturing the bishop opens the queen's diagonal and prepares for central pawn advances. Opening the f-file with this capture is a bold but potentially risky venture, exposing your king's defenses to immediate pressure. Opening the f-file drastically alters the game's dynamic, offering a potential avenue for your queen. A bold maneuver, aiming to disrupt white's queenside structure and potentially exploit the open f-file, but it leaves black's king somewhat exposed. Striking a tactical blow to open the king's defenses and gain initiative. Unleashing the queen to seize the open f-file, this maneuver immediately targets white's uncastled king and creates significant queenside pressure. Simplifying the position by clearing out a major attacking piece, this queen maneuver prepares for an active central presence and potential pawn breakthroughs. The queen exchange simplifies the position, opening critical diagonals for future piece activity and transitioning towards an endgame. Consolidating the king, white prepares to utilize the open c-file for an endgame advantage. The knight's journey to the rim often signals a positional retreat, aiming to reroute itself to a more active square, perhaps the powerful c5 outpost. Asserting control of the central dark squares with this knight's advance aims to restrict black's pieces and prepare a queenside pawn push. Unleashing the rook into the heart of white's position, this aggressive foray seeks to disrupt the opponent's developing harmony and exploit lingering structural weaknesses. Protecting the king's safe haven while preparing a central counterthrust opens up new avenues for piece development. Opening the c-file now offers dynamic counterplay, but be mindful of the exposed king. Opening the b-file now offers a chance to pressure the isolated c5 pawn. Challenging the pawn chain, black seeks to unravel white's centralized structure, potentially opening lines for his rook. Reclaiming the outpost with the knight, this maneuver aims to disrupt black's control of the central files and create dynamic play.